And so one of the lessons that I took away from all of this is like, as the founder and CEO, if you want to scale, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You have your lane, you've got the vision, you set the culture and the goals. And then if you can hire people that you can rely on to help you take your business to the next level, I've found it to be much easier. And as for like the case of like when you hire somebody, you hire their problems as well. We have not had any problems really with the vast majority of folks that we've hired because we hire well. And then to give ourselves credit as a company, we strategically treat them extremely well. Our leadership team leads with empathy and compassion. We try to build a great place to work because we want these folks who are extremely well qualified and very productive and fun to work with. We want them to have fun at work and to enjoy coming to work and solving these really serious problems with us.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Business, Your Next Level. I'm your host, Eunicia Peret, and today we have Alex Hollis in the studio with me. He's someone that brings a wealth of knowledge to everything that deals with nursing. Alex is an educator and founder of NurseHub, a platform helping thousands of future nurses succeed. He's dedicated to expanding access to high-quality prep, clinical simulations, and student support. His mission is simple, as he says, make nursing school more achievable and help the nursing shortage. And we all know, we've all heard that there is a nursing shortage. Alex, first of all, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about how did you get into this beautiful field that truly needs a lot of support?
Sure. Thank you, Eunicia. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so my background is not in nursing, surprisingly. It's in education. My first job out of college, I was a high school physics teacher in Mississippi via Teach for America. And while I was there, I had a lot of students who really wanted to go into nursing and get into nursing school and struggled with the various entrance exams that they had to prepare for and pass in order to get accepted into their program. And that really, that stayed with me for a long time because while in Mississippi, I realized, and I think, a lot of people realize now, like there's a massive nursing shortage and that really impacts rural areas most significantly. And so Mississippi was kind of a nursing desert. And I had all of these wonderful, amazing students who were really intelligent, hardworking, empathetic, and compassionate, and would have made fantastic nurses that just really struggled to either get in or get through that first semester. And so I didn't start NurseHub right, while I was still teaching. I finished my commitment with Teach for America, moved back up to Boston, Massachusetts, and worked a bit in business. And this, thought still stuck with me. And so NurseHub kind of started back in Teach for America, but was officially founded in 2018, just on my couch in my apartment, nights and weekends while I worked elsewhere, and then finally was able to take the jump and do it full time. And so, yeah, it's been a really exciting journey, and I'm honored to, be involved in the nursing profession as far as running a company that helps nurses, but I'm certainly in no way a nursing expert. I mean, these folks have to study and learn so much just to become a nurse and then to stay a nurse. And what they do is unbelievable. And so I don't want any kind of like stolen valor here. I'm not a nurse. I can't do what they do every day, which is amazing. And so, yeah, our mission is simple. It's to help end America's nursing shortage. We're short about 1 million nurses right now, and that's only getting worse as time goes on. So, yeah, it's been an honor to be doing this and to be able to talk to so many nursing students now who got into nursing school having used NurseHub. That's one of the most rewarding parts of my job, is talking to these students and hearing about their successes and, understanding that we were able to touch their lives and the lives of their patients as they go on in practice at bedside.
I love that. One of the things that you said, Alex, about the fact that you're not a nurse or you've not been in the nursing world professionally. However, you're helping an industry that you did not necessarily grow up in. I'd be interested to know, how has it been to build trust with your students? And the reason I ask that is because as you No, and thank you for all the amazing feedback about and insights about the podcast. The podcast actually focuses on the amazing entrepreneurs that are out there listening to us. And our promise is thinking outside of the box, strategies that have business owners and entrepreneurs that come onto the show that where they've demonstrated an ability to think outside of the box. And you've done it, right? You've been able to think outside of the box. How has your trajectory been in building that trust with the nursing professionals, especially since at the beginning you did not bring as much experience to it?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. And obviously, like, you want to build so much trust with your customers. And that was a challenge, not being a nurse, but starting a company to help nurses. Folks probably would expect that the founder and CEO of a nursing education company would have experience as a nurse. But when I started building test prep that didn't require any kind of clinical medical knowledge. So it was not anything that was outside of my wheelhouse. It was, science, English, math were the things that students needed to excel at in order to get into their nursing program. And that was all stuff that I was comfortable with, having been an educator. And then the stuff that, so I started there, and then we continued to expand, and we brought in some really great teachers that were in my network who were even better, math teachers, science teachers, English teachers. And we were able to build a really excellent product that was effective and that continued to grow through word of mouth. So what we found in the nursing community is they really like to see each other succeed, and they talk a lot. They talk about what works and what doesn't. And you'll constantly see NurseHub come up in conversation, whether that's in person when you talk to a nurse these days, or whether it's, on Reddit or Facebook. You see a lot of folks recommending us because we were effective there. Now, as we continue to grow and have to build more, clinical specific, more advanced niche specific educational products, we've brought in highly credentialed, extremely experienced folks to help us build that educational content. Because of course, that's completely outside of my wheelhouse. So we were able to establish a foundation of trust through building a product that was, within our scope of capability. And then we grew and we scaled the business with adding just really incredibly talented and passionate, but also highly credentialed and well-educated folks who knew how to build the content that we knew we needed in order to continue to serve these folks as they learn more about, all things clinical and, in a hospital setting, all of the nursing specific stuff that you need to know that I am in no position to teach. So
I love the fact that you're talking about how you relied on people that had more knowledge than you. That's oftentimes, I see that as a big shortcoming for a lot of, we'll really talk about the business owners, the individuals that really have not scaled to becoming entrepreneurs because they're trying to constantly figure it out all on their own. And you've done that so beautifully by continuing to add additional expertise in areas where you knew there was a need. However, it was not your wheelhouse necessarily. Talk to us a little bit more about your lessons. What were some of the big lessons that you learned as part of scaling a bootstrapped ed tech company?
Sure. Hiring well has been the biggest boon for success for us. I know I received a lot of feedback and advice early on to wait absolutely as long as possible before you start hiring people, because in some folks' opinions, you hire people and you hire their problems as well, is how it was framed. And that just makes everything a lot more complicated, more difficult. So there was some hesitancy at first for me to scale based on that advice. But, as we started hiring folks, and we did it extremely carefully, we brought on some really amazing people who have just helped elevate the company, not just from a productivity standpoint, but from a culture standpoint too. I have more fun coming to work now because I have an amazing team. I get to work with really great people. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to be I'm very humbled that I get to lead these folks who are, more educated than I am, smarter than I am, and certainly more skilled in a lot of different areas that I am not. And so one of the lessons that I took away from all of this is as the founder and CEO, if you want to scale, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You have your lane, you've got the vision, you set the culture and the goals, And then if you can hire people that you can rely on to help you take your business to the next level, I've found it to be much easier. And as for like the case of like when you hire somebody, you hire their problems as well. We have not had any problems really with the vast majority of folks that we've hired because we hire well. And then to give ourselves credit as a company, we strategically treat them extremely well. Our leadership team leads with empathy and compassion, and we try to build a great place to work because we want these folks who are extremely well qualified and very productive and fun to work with. We want them to have fun at work and to enjoy coming to work and solving these really serious problems with us. And so, hiring well and then treating them well to keep them has definitely been the biggest factor in our success in scaling the company.
You said something that's very important that I'd like to unpack a little bit, specifically focused on when you hire people, you hire their problems as well. And what I'm here to say is that it really depends on the leadership of the company. It depends on the business owner. It depends on what are the things that they're struggling with, their personality, how much work have they done themselves to improve on a personal note. That professional development, business, individual professional development is so key that I had this conversation a few years ago with my coaches, and it felt like there's a period in time where we were hiring individuals and it felt like they were being hired and somehow I needed to be there for them. There were points in time when I thought to myself, why does it feel like I have to be here for them and I have to walk on eggshells as the owner of the company to make sure that I protect them? Because if not, they're going to self-combust. And what I've learned over the years is that the more work I did on me and the more clear I was about our mission and even the types of clients that we were bringing on and just having fun and clearing the air of things that we did not need, people and even clients that were not in alignment with us. What ended up happening is it ended up being a beautiful change that we could see, touch, and feel in the team as well. So for business owners that are listening, for entrepreneurs that are listening, and you're maybe thinking or somebody told you the same thing, one of my guiding posts is always be careful. Who is it that you're listening to and what is their vantage point with the wisdom and the knowledge that they want to bless you with? Because, well, it may not necessarily hold water for you.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's experiences and skills and industries are different. And there's certainly cases where maybe it is a better option for you to go as far as you can on your own. For us, it's definitely, the more really great folks that we hire, the better the company feels and, the more money we make.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, the more students that we can impact and the more nurses we end up creating and the bigger impact we have on the nursing shortage.
Speaking of that and speaking of money, talk to us a little bit about how have you discovered your unique area of genius to make the product accessible to your students, especially those that perhaps may not yet already be nurses?
Sure. So one of the key principles of our company is that we want to make sure that all of our products are as accessible as possible. Regardless of your socioeconomic background, we need more nurses, and we don't want to gatekeep our content and learning tools behind either an expensive paywall or anything like that. And so what NurseHub offers is it's a platform that is a subscription model. It's a low price subscription, which we've found is preferable to our learners because they can kind of space that pricing out and they can cancel any time that they don't need it anymore. And then the other thing that we've done is we've released all of our video content. So we at first started as an online course company, and we're shifting to more of a platform-based company where you can take practice tests and review videos on your own because that's how we see students interacting with the product. So we're shifting in that way, but we released all of our videos on YouTube for free because we didn't feel like we wanted to keep any of that really great content behind a paywall. We want it to be accessible to as many folks as possible, to even people who can't necessarily afford the monthly subscription, regardless of how low we keep it priced.
That's amazing. How has that worked for you? Because a lot of business owners would very much balk at the idea of just putting everything that you have or a good majority of the content that you have out publicly. How has that worked for you?
It's been great. One, I think you do end up getting some favorable, business receipts from, the goodwill that you create by doing this type of thing. We've also seen an increase in just our exposure because when you put out some really high quality stuff for free, it ends up being really excellent marketing. Not all of those students convert. A lot of them do, and a lot of them come to NurseHub so that they can continue studying with our practice tests and our quizzes and all the other tools that we offer. A lot of them don't, and they get what they need from the YouTube videos, and that's great. If they're still becoming nurses, we're still meeting our mission.
That is beautiful. It's beautiful because you truly are still making a huge impact in the marketplace. I love that. Talk to us a little bit about your superpower, Alex. So you talked about combining vision and empathy. And one of the things that I know, having seen a lot of business owners that are highly empathic, is that they do have a tendency of taking a huge burden of just the day-to-day and the team on themselves. How has that worked for you? How have you been able to combine your deep vision and your empathy in delivering value to your clients, to your team, and most importantly, for it to not drag you down on a personal note?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's tough to be, really empathic and not have it, or empathetic and not have it impact your mental health. But that's just kind of my natural state of being. So that's not something that I feel like I'm needing to tap into in order to be a better leader. I think that's just kind of naturally who I am. I think I feel very, very deeply and feel very deeply for others. And I do, I've always been able to put myself in other people's shoes and be able to see, at least from in some aspect, what they see and feel and experience. And I think, combining that with the vision that we have for the product and the company that we want to build and our mission has helped us, grow not just our team, the amount of folks that we're able to reach. We have, as a company, we hire a lot of very empathetic folks. I think the company's mission naturally attracts really empathetic folks. And so that's really shined, not just in marketing, but in product development. We understand, how our students feel. We talk to them all the time, but we're able to put ourselves in their shoes and build the kind of products and tools that they need in order to succeed, but also just to make them feel better. I mean, nursing students are going through a hellacious time. Some of these textbooks that they have to go through in just a night, it's insane, the amount of content that they need to absorb and retain, and then show up and go through clinical and sim lab. And so, keeping them and their lives in the back of our minds help us build, really top class products for them. So yeah, I think the empathy and the vision definitely kind of go hand in hand. I think empathy definitely informs our vision for a product, for a culture, and our mission.
Talking about product development specifically, and I love the fact that you went there because I was actually, as I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm like, oh, I'd want to know more about how are you able to stay agile and competitive at the same time in developing new product, and what is your philosophy around that? Maybe without going into the secret sauce, what are some of the things that have really worked for you as the company has continued to scale?
That's a great question. From an operational perspective, we very specifically were, again, it all comes down to hiring the right folks. And we wanted to hire a product designer because I did most of the design on the original website and all of that stuff myself. And I'm not a designer, but we wanted a product designer who was a nurse and really fully understood what it felt like to be a nurse and the problems that nurses face, and to be able to tap into those feelings, that language they use, and truly understand in order to help redesign and build our future products. And so we hired somebody who was basically a unicorn. Everybody was like, you're not going to find somebody who was a nurse who decided to switch to, product development and design. And I was like, well, I think it makes sense to look for this person. And we were able to find that person. And that's helped operationally tremendously because they brought in that perspective to the product team that we desperately needed because we didn't have any folks who were nurses on our product team. So I think that's been a big deal as far as team makeup goes. As far as being agile, we try to stay as lean as possible. We're completely bootstrapped. We don't have any outside investments or anything. We started all this with, some debt on my credit card, and then we were profitable, and now we just keep reinvesting those profits back into the company to continue to grow it. So we've kind of been forced to be agile and lean just in order to survive. We really didn't really have much of any other choice because we don't have any other outside money. We're kind of on our own.
Without outside money, that also means that you retain all of the control and you don't have somebody constantly breathing down your back. So being bootstrapped is not a bad thing.
No, it's not. I mean, everything has its trade-offs. There's certainly been times where I've been like, I'd really like to go ask somebody for $1 million right now so we can just build this thing faster and better and get it right on V1. But, overall, I think, the way that we do things, it's not always super conducive to outside investment. And I understand that because we don't always put short-term profit gains first. Again, going back to the example of releasing all of our videos on YouTube for free, that would have been a pretty tough sell to investors who are looking to recoup their funds as quickly as possible. But, in the long-term vision of the company and to be aligned with the mission and doing so, we are uniquely positioned as a bootstrapped company to be able to do those types of things. And so I do think that that's important in what's worked for us. But I don't know. I guess I would recommend being bootstrapped if you can, but it's certainly not possible in every industry.
I believe it really boils down to, even as a business owner, ensuring that you have, whether it be the right team internally because you've hired them or having the right support via consultants or coaches. I can tell you that for me, that has made a huge difference early on when we first laid down the foundation of what is now Excelstra. Shifting gears, Alex, a little bit, everybody knows that we are, and you mentioned it beautifully, we are experiencing a huge shortage of nurses. We're starting to get into some big trouble on the medical side as well with physicians. How do you see, as a nation, what do you see are the things that are going to help us close that gap, especially on the nursing side, because you're doing a beautiful job out there providing resources and helping more new nurses come online. And at the same time, the shortage is impacting everyone. It's impacting individuals' loved ones. It's impacting them because of the care that they may or may not receive whenever they're in a medical environment. What do you see are some of the things that could help us get out of this conundrum?
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is provide accessible education to folks to help support them through their entire nursing journey. And that's only and so the reason we phrase our mission as help end the nursing shortage instead of end the nursing shortage is we don't believe that we have the tools or capability to do it all ourselves. There's definitely things that have to happen on a national level in order to help curb the nursing shortage. One is we need to pay our nurses more. There's definitely been a trend recently where hospitals will, not want to work with the nursing union, not want to increase their salaries. And so what they do in order to try to backfill some of those holes that leaves behind is they'll bring in a travel nurse and they'll end up paying them significantly more, but they don't always get all the benefits that are required. I think at a national level, we have to make sure that our nurses are paid an appropriate wage and they deserve much more than they're getting paid for now, which I felt that as a teacher. I think there's a lot in common with teachers and nurses, where I think it is a hypercritical job. It's just very underappreciated. There was that moment during COVID where we all loved nurses, and then I think we kind of forgot about it collectively as a culture since then. And it takes those moments of going into a hospital and having, a bad experience in a hospital to make you realize, oh yeah, no, this is a problem that impacts all of us and we should all be doing something to try to help. Personally, we were privileged enough to live in Boston when we had our first son. And so Boston is home to some of the best hospitals in the country. And, there were complications at birth, and it was a nurse who recognized all of that right away. And quickly there was a huge cohort of nurses and physicians in there who were able to take care of everything very smoothly, and our son survived. It provided that reflection moment of, what if we were in an understaffed hospital? What if that nurse was exhausted because she was in charge of far more rooms and had far bigger caseload than she should have had? Or what if that nurse wasn't there at all? Then what happens? And that is what a lot of folks have faced in hospitals across the country now. So the nursing shortage definitely impacts all of us, and it is only going to get worse unless we do something about it at a national level. And I think that starts with, supporting our nursing unions, getting nurses more pay, and, making sure that they're getting the mental health treatment that they need. It's an extremely scarring job emotionally. And we talk to nurses all the time who left just because of burnout, whether they were overworked or over emotionally worked, because I mean, as you can imagine, like having a patient die is got to be an extremely emotionally difficult experience. So the more that we can do to support those nurses at that level, whether it's getting them the mental health help that they need or the financial resources that they deserve, I think that would be a step in the right direction.
I agree. And it would be huge, not just for them, for the patients. It would also be huge for the physicians as well, because they're feeling the strain. It's truly a system and everybody's kind of tight in the middle. And it feels like the tightening is just it seems to be getting worse. Hopefully we can figure out how to turn it around. Alex, this has been an amazing episode. One of my favorite questions to end with is, what is one of your biggest failures or regrets that you experienced as you bootstrap and grew your company, and what did it teach you?
Sure. Yeah, this is always a challenging but fun question because I think we learn the most from our failures. I have talked about being an empathetic leader, and I think one of the difficult things that I've had to learn to balance there is that, empathy and compassion doesn't mean that you can't give direction or have difficult conversations. I don't think anyone really likes to have difficult conversations. I particularly don't enjoy having them, but it's an incredibly important part of the job. And I've learned that just like in relationships, the longer that you wait to, have that difficult conversation, the harder and worse it gets. So for folks out there who have not read it yet, Radical Candor, I think, is a good book to get you on the right path there. We read that as a team, and, it's still something that I certainly struggle with. Again, no one likes having those difficult conversations, but you have to have them.
It is beautifully said. And yes, that is an area that we see business owners and entrepreneurs struggle with often. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with where I would literally just even sometimes networking events or personal conversations like, hey, have you considered doing X, Y, Z? Well, yeah, but I'm non-confrontational is what they would say, right? They're non-confrontational. A lot of people put it kind of in the same box, the idea of providing feedback and having expectations from whomever they're working with and being confrontational, when the reality is it's not. As a matter of fact, my argument would be that you probably are confrontational by the sheer fact that you're not addressing the problem. Because it's not, in most cases, it's not that the other person doesn't want to do things better, differently, faster, whatever. Maybe you have never aligned truly on the expectations, or maybe the expectations have changed. And the best thing that we can do for the other person is to provide them visibility into how we think. Because when we do, they're able to get inside of our head and actually take things off our plate. And surprisingly, you don't even have to sometimes explain what it is that you're looking for. It's already done. So yeah, no, you've stated that beautifully. Alex, as we part on our episode today, are there any parting thoughts that you feel leaning in and perhaps needing to share with our listeners today?
Sure. I would say, hire with purpose and lead with empathy. And that's how you can build a strong culture that continues moving the company forward. And don't be afraid to give feedback. I have to constantly remind myself, and it's what my wife tells me all the time. My wife, Heather, is our chief operating officer. And, she says everyone deserves feedback. So don't hold back on that.
I love it. I love it. Alex, thank you so much for being here with us today. And as you're listening to this episode, Alex has shared some really, really key insights into what as a country we're struggling with. And it's really even at a global level. Everyone has the opportunity to make a difference, whether it is that you're in the medical profession and you can somehow influence what's happening in the system, or perhaps you're someone out there, either yourself or someone that you care for has been a patient and has needed to be helped by a nurse. Just understand and maybe understand that they're dealing with a lot and find a way to perhaps be kind or kinder, especially in situations that perhaps could otherwise trigger some emotions. And most importantly, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you've liked about this episode. So go rate the show. And most importantly, also share it with others. So rate the show, share it with others, and let us know when you rate it, what has been the one big takeaway that you've gotten from our episode today. And until next time, stay tuned for Your Business, Your Next Level.
Thank you for joining us on Your Business, Your Next Level podcast, where it is all about helping you make more, keep more, and elevating your business to the next level. To learn more, make sure you head over to www.podcast.extelstra.com and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Again, that's podcast.extelstra.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.